All right, welcome. My name is Sarah Joseph, and I help people by empowering them with tools um, to help reduce hassles and stress and overwhelm and increase connection and strengthen relationships. So, tonight we're talking about establishing new routines, and I'm going to talk about the how to do it and the why it's really important. Um, I I am recording this, and I'm going to record it so it's just me and the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, I will turn off the recording, and at that time you can turn on your mics and your videos if you would like to, and we can have a discussion about this and have a question and answer period. Um, but by all means, if questions are coming up throughout the discussion, throughout the presentation, please go ahead and you can pop comments into the chat box, and you can find the chat box just at the bottom of your screen. There's a little bubble that says chat, and you can type in questions there and it will pop up for me to read. Okay, so let's get started. For those of you who were with us last week, we did talk about the brain and how the brain works, and why kids might be feeling a bit overwhelmed now, and why adults might be feeling a bit overwhelmed right now with all that's going on in the world. Stress has increased. And we talked about, I just want to review the amygdala, or the guard dog of the brain, tonight, so that we remember this from last week. And for some of you who weren't with us last week, you'll get a little bit more information about that. If you want more information, you can go back and watch last week's video. And if you don't know where to find that, please just send me a message and I can get it to you. So the amygdala, or the guard dog, is the part of our brain that is in control of our flight, and fear responses. All right, so our fight, freeze, and run response. And it's the emotional seat of our brain. So it takes in everything that's going on around us and decides if that information is safe or unsafe, and decides if it's going to allow the information to flow up to the other parts of our brain for learning and coding and solving problems and helping us with impulse control, or not, or if it's going to shut down that part of our brain that helps us with our impulse control, our reason, logic, learning, and coding, recalling, and set off the flight, fight, or freeze response. Now, our guard dog, or the amygdala, doesn't really understand the difference between something that is truly dangerous and something that is just emotionally overwhelming for us, or pushes our buttons, or gets us a bit riled up. It often responds in almost the exact same way in which it sends us into that fight or flight response when we're feeling emotionally overwhelmed. So you can imagine that right now, because our window of tolerance, our ability to handle stress has shrunk, that during this time we have a lot of fight or flight responses happening. And this might look like anything from blowing up to shutting down, right? Everybody handles the fight, flight, or freeze a bit differently, because we are unique beings. We don't all have the same response to stress. And that's the truth for us as adults and for our kids. Depending on our temperament, we have a different way of dealing with stressful events, right? And again, those stressful events might be a pandemic, or it might be, trying to do homework at home, schoolwork at home, or it might be my little sister is driving me crazy, right? All of those things can be seen as stressful events and push us to a place where we blow up or shut down. We've moved into our fight, flight, or freeze response. Okay. Now, the reason I wanted to remind you about this and talk about it a little bit more before we get into routines is because this is one of the reasons why routines are so important. So routines are really important because they can make it easier for kids to deal with stressful events. It helps us organize ourselves as a family to get things done, and it helps families run smoother, right? The regular and consistent routines can help us feel like we're doing a good job as parents, and it can help lower our stress, um, and it can help reduce fights within the family. And I want to talk about some of these points, but I just wanted to read them so you weren't stuck reading them the whole time I was talking. So, first, it makes it easier for children to deal with stressful events, okay, because they understand what's coming. So basically, um, kids don't, even if your child is old enough to read a clock, they don't really run by the clock like we do as adults, right? So kids aren't often looking at the clock. They're more in tune with their body rhythms and the routines that they have in place. Now, if you've ever walked into your child's classroom, you'll see on the classroom board, usually there is a structure for the day, a routine for the day, right? We're going to do this, this, and then have snack and go for recess. Then we're going to do this, and then we're going to have lunch and go for recess. And that's because it helps children feel safe to know what's coming next. It also is really helpful for setting our body clocks, right? So it tells our bodies how to prepare for what's coming next. So for instance, we know that bedtime routines is really good sleep hygiene, right? So and I'm assuming because you all have children who are school age, that you have dealt with children who are babies and that you have dealt with toddlers. And we know that having that strict bedtime routine that we follow every night helps them fall asleep faster, right? And we can see how rhythms are really helpful, especially when we go away on vacation and we fall out of our routines and everything goes out the window and kids get clingy and cranky, right? Has that ever happened to you when you're on vacation? Yeah, it's happened to me too. And that's simply because kids don't feel as safe when they're out of routine. They don't know what's coming. They don't know what to expect, which means that their amygdala or their guard dog is on higher alert, right? And when you got an amygdala or a guard dog who's on higher alert, that means it's going to flip into that fight, flight, or freeze response more quickly, okay? So they end up feeling clingy, whiny, and more heightened emotionally when they're out of their routine. So you can see how this pandemic and moving out of routines, normal routines, and being at home all the time, and maybe not having such routines at home that they're used to, can make it so that children might be acting out more, right? Or feeling more clingy or emotional at this time. So I want to help you figure out how to set up some routines in your home, okay? And we'll talk about that more tonight. But right now, let's talk a little bit more about why they're important, and what they can do for kids. So they're good for kids because it helps them feel safe, secure, and looked after, especially during these stressful times, right? But it can also help them build skills and responsibilities. So like time management, right? Which is a really good skill to have as we are getting into adulthood or even just into teenhood, right? Being able to manage their schoolwork and the school time is going to help them in high school. It helps them build healthy habits. So if we're thinking about, brushing teeth and washing hands, those are all really healthy habits, but so could be like eating on a regular basis or doing meditation or getting physical exercise, right? And so it helps them build that routine and build those healthy habits like brushing and eating good food, healthy food, getting exercise, getting fresh air, all of those things. I already talked about setting their body clocks, and kids don't feel like they're being told what to do all day long. So as a children's counselor, I can tell you that one of the number one complaints I hear from kids is that they feel like they're being bossed around constantly. And so that doesn't feel very good, but it also, I think it was Gordon Neufeld who coined this phrase, but correct me if I'm wrong. He called it the resistance reflex. And so what he means is that, we have the reflex that, if a doctor hit your elbow, that reflex, you would knock your arm out, or your knee, you would kick your foot, right? And the resistance reflex is just like that. It's automatic. You can't control it. When somebody tells you what to do, your brain automatically says, no, you're not the boss of me. I don't want to do that. Right? And so when we're bossing our kids around, directing them, telling them what to do, then we feel that resistance. Their brains automatically go, you can't tell me what to do. And they have to work around that, which can be difficult. So working on routine charts together can be really helpful. So this, again, isn't about mom or dad or any care provider taking the power away from the child. This is about bringing the child in and empowering them to create their own routines. So we would sit with our children and create a routine together of what needs to get done, right? And so if we look at this example, it's bedtime routine. And so in order to make a routine with our kids for bedtime, we might sit down with them and ask them the questions. What do you do before you go to sleep? What are the things that you need to get done before you're ready to sleep? And they would start naming some things off, because they're aware. Every night I brush my teeth. Every night I have a bath. Every night I have a snack. Every night we read some books. And then I go to sleep, right? So they would name off the things that they need to do, and you could make a list with them. And then you could ask them to put it in the order that it's supposed to be done in. And then you could ask them if they wanted to make the routine out of it, right? So the routine chart. So they could draw pictures, or if you have like a Polaroid camera or a printer at home, you could always take pictures of your child doing each of the steps, and then cut those out and paste them on the routine chart. Or cut pictures out of magazines, or print pictures off of other children doing these steps or these things from the internet. All of that would work fine. You don't even need to have pictures if your child is old enough to read. If they're old enough to read, then you can just write down the words, or they could write down the words, which would be even better. And one of the things I hear from parents a lot is that routine charts are meant for toddlers and not older people. But that's frankly not true. We have routine charts ourselves. We call them to-do lists, right? As adults, to manage our time, we keep a calendar and we keep to-do lists, either in our head or in our calendars or on a piece of paper. And we use those to keep us on track to manage our time throughout the day. And this is the same with kids of all ages. We can teach them how to use calendars, how to use to-do lists, how to use checklists to manage their time and to set a routine for themselves, right? Now, as we're establishing new routines in the household, it's helpful to review what we already have going on. So you may have had a morning routine to get up, get ready, and get out of the house and ready for school. It is really helpful to go back to doing that same routine, even though you're not leaving the house. So, for instance, waking up around the same time of day, and then going through the process of getting ready in the same way that you had been getting ready. So having breakfast, maybe taking a shower, you might not get your bag packed to leave the house to catch the bus or to get to school, but to have the kids get their school stuff ready might be helpful. And maybe even to pack a lunch or get some snacks ready for the day ahead, right? Just some of the things that would get them back into routine would be helpful now to create that safety, but also to help them feel less overwhelmed emotionally. That when we're in stressful times, it's often really helpful to lean back on the routines that we already know before establishing new routines. Now, if obviously some of the routines that we've had in our life we're not going to be able to do, right? Some of the parts of our routines that we've had aren't going to work right now. For instance, leaving the house to go to school, right? That's not going to be part of our routine now, but we can replace that piece of the routine with setting up the kitchen table to do our schoolwork, or walking to another room where we have the schoolwork set up. Or simply pulling the school books out to set them up on the kitchen table, right? So just the returning back to the routines that we've had in the past can be super helpful in establishing new routines because there's some normacy there, okay? Then we can add on new pieces. So what are the things that we need to get done, right? You can look at the things that the teachers are sending you, assignments that need to get done for the week. You can look at what household items need to get done. You know, having your children help with household chores and meals is really a fantastic way to get them involved in more routines around the house, and find that connection time to help them feel connected and feel like they're contributing to the household running. Contribution is a beautiful tool to have, to help kids feel significance and belonging, to help them feel connection and like they matter. And so, you know, having them do the dishes or feed a pet, or clean up, set the table, help with a meal, all of those things are really helpful in doing on a routine basis, like every day, to build routine, but to also build that connection and contribution piece that is so vital for kids to feel like they're thriving and that they matter. And I think we're going to talk about that in a week coming up, more contribution stuff. So back to routines. When we're talking about routines, again, it's really important that we bring them into this loop, right? What do we need to actually get accomplished? Here's what your teacher sent. Here's a list of what we have that your teacher sent us for the week. And here's a list of the contributions around the house that we're all making. How can we make this into a routine for your day so that you have playtime and free time and screen time, you know, and just make a bit of a list. In our house, what we've decided as a family is that we're going to get up and do our normal morning routines. And then at the time that school normally starts, so 8:30, 8:40, that's when our school started at 8:40. And so we're starting at 8:30. We start doing schoolwork at the kitchen table. And then we work on schoolwork for a couple hours. And then it's time for a break, a bit of play. So we got the snack and we got the recess, right? Which is kind of what they're used to. And then after that, there's time for connecting with friends. And then there is chores and lunch. And then they have the afternoons for playtime, and some gym, PE. And then we come together as a family to get dinner on the table. And then we are spending some time together as a family after dinner. And then it's time for the kids to get their bedtime routine going. So you can see that I'm not talking about a strict schedule here. We don't have to have everything timed down to the minute. And sometimes things start later or go longer, but it's more about what's coming next, right? And giving the kids the idea of what's coming next really helps them understand that they're safe. It helps them feel secure. It helps them know how to prepare for what's coming and what to expect, right? If you can imagine for a moment that you don't have a clock and you have no idea what's coming, right? What to expect from the people around you, or when you're going to get fed next, when you can get food next, you know, all of those things, it would cause you some anxiety. And it's hard to really think about what this might be now that you're an adult and you're in control of all those things. But as a young child, not knowing what's coming next can really build the anxiety. And when we have that building of anxiety, then we often have that guard dog or amygdala right on the verge of sending us into our fight, flight, or freeze response, right? So being able to know what's coming next is going to help our kids feel much safer, much calmer, and help and prevent them from going into that fight, flight, or freeze response as frequently as they might have been or might be at this time. So one of the other things that routines do is it can help decrease conflict in the house. So for instance, if you know that every day screen time is at 4 p.m., then the kids won't be asking you constantly, can we have screen time? Can we have screen time? Or trying to go behind your back to get screen time, because they know it's coming, right? And they know when to expect it. Same with dinners. If you have dinners planned and everybody knows that, Friday night is pizza night and Friday night is movie night, then nobody needs to decide what to eat that night. So it reduces stress for parents trying to plan meals, but it also it decreases like the need to make decisions around what's happening tonight or when are we going to spend time together. That routine is really a great way to build consistency and build those expectations into our lives. When kids can count on us to show up for things like family meetings, for family time, for family fun, to be consistent, then they know that we're going to be there when they really need us, and they end up being more consistent as well and looking forward to those times to spend with us. They will show up. It's interesting when I work with families and we start doing family meetings and kids don't want to come to the family meetings. But after we get going on family meetings for a few months and they see that it's consistent and that the parents are showing up every single time and that they're listening, then kids start wanting to come to family meetings. And when parents stop doing it or forget about it, kids call them on it and they're like, we need the family meetings. Let's do that again. Why aren't we doing the family meetings? It's really interesting to see that the consistency can bring families together. Okay, so when we're using the routine charts, I'm gonna turn this back because it says let the routine chart be the boss. So again, we're not telling our kids what's next. We're going to let the routine chart be the boss, and we're going to ask them what's next. What do you need to do next on your list, right? One of the other things that comes up often when I'm working with parents is that routine charts are for little kids, or my kids get sick of the routine charts, or my kids 10, they don't want a routine chart. And my answer is always, we all use routine charts, we just call them something different, right? And you can call it whatever you want to call it. You don't have to call it a routine chart. You can call it a checklist. You can call it a to-do list. You can call it a step-by-step, a daily schedule. Call it whatever works for your family. What I did for my kids, and they're 11 and 8, is we got a whiteboard and we just wrote their names and then what they each needed to do throughout the day. And then as they did it, they went back and checked it off the list. And they enjoyed doing that for quite some time. And then at some point, it wasn't working anymore. And I think they just got bored of using that whiteboard and that process, right? They were like, I know how to do this. We don't need it anymore. And when we started falling out of routine because they weren't using their list anymore, what I did was I came up with a different idea and I gave them each clipboards with a pen and a piece of paper on it, and they got super excited about having a routine chart again, and they just like walked around the house with their little clipboards feeling super scientific and fancy and checked things off as they were finishing them. And again, that worked for months before they decided it wasn't fun anymore, and then we had to come up with something new. So sometimes, kids get bored with the same old thing, and it's fun to recreate it in a different way. And of course, you don't have to be the mastermind behind what that looks like, because kids have brilliant ideas. They're so creative. So if you ask them how they imagine their routine list going, they'll be able to come up with some ideas that you can try out. Okay, so While we're using the routine chart, we're going to use curiosity questions to help motivate our kids. So curiosity questions is really just a way to encourage cooperation, help kids think critically and feel more capable. And it's a way for us to draw forth their knowledge. We want to ask them questions that helps us learn, what do they know already? And where can we fill it? What blanks do we have to fill in? What gaps do we have to fill in with skills or information for them to do what we need them to do? But really, we need to learn where they're at first. So we need to draw forth what they know, okay? And so again, the top of this is just when children hear a command, a signal is sent to the brain that invites them to resist, right? That's that resistance reflex. And when children hear a respectful question, a signal is sent to the brain to search for an answer. And this is really helpful when we are trying to help our kids feel capable and we'd like them to cooperate more. So I just want you to put on your kid hat for a moment, if you would. We'll step into a little role play here, and I will be your parent, and you will be your child, okay? So your elementary school age child. Pick one of them if you have multiples. And I'm going to give you some commands, and I want you to just sit with, how does it make you feel? What are you thinking and what are you feeling when you're hearing these things from me? Okay. Go brush your teeth. Pick up those toys. Take that plate to the sink. Pack your bag. Go to bed. Now, how did that feel? What were you thinking and feeling? Did you recognize that little resistance in your brain? Did it make you want to jump up and go brush your teeth? Did it make you want to cooperate, or did you want to resist? Were you drawn to doing any challenging behavior? Were you learning anything from me? Okay. So now I'm going to ask you some questions, some curiosity questions, and I want you to just stay in your kid role. I'll be the parent and you be your kid still. And just see how this feels, if it feels any differently. What do you need to do to make sure you get all the scuzz off your teeth? What was our agreement about what we would do with our plates after dinner? Where do toys belong when we're finished playing with them? What do you need to do to be ready to leave the house? And what do you need to do before you're ready to go to sleep? Okay. So how did that feel different for you? Were you more willing to cooperate? Did your brain search for the answer of what you needed to do or what our agreement was? Did you feel more capable? Did you feel like you were willing to cooperate or like you were learning anything from me, any life skills? Often when I do this in a parenting workshop where we're in person and we're talking more, what I hear from parents as we finish this role play is that when they felt like I was telling them what to do, there was a lot of resistance. They didn't feel capable and they didn't want to cooperate. They were more drawn to some of the challenging behaviors like talking back or ignoring or defiance. And then once they go through the asking of the questions, they usually report that they feel more connected to the parent who's asking, that they feel capable, that they feel like they want to cooperate, and that they they feel like they're smart, and that parents think that they're smart because they were asking them what it is that needs to be done. Mhm. So when we're using routine charts, when we've talked about, again, we're not going to make the routine chart ourselves. We're going to sit down with our kids and use these curiosity questions to ask questions about what they need to do in order to get their school work done for the week or the day, or what are the things that they need to do during a day to get their chores done and their schoolwork done, and build in time for friends and play, and help them create the routine chart. And then we're going to also use curiosity questions when they seem to be out of their routine. We'll ask them things like, what's next on your routine, in your routine? Or what do you need to do to ensure that you get your schoolwork done today? Or what's your plan for getting your schoolwork done today? Right? So, a few more tips for the curiosity questions is make sure that you're both emotionally regulated first. When we move into that fight, flight, or freeze response, curiosity questions often make it worse because we're already not regulated. And when we feel like we're having questions thrown at us, we can't answer them because we can't access that part of our brain. So for adults and kids, when somebody is deregulated, when they look like they're in that fight, flight, or freeze response, the number one thing that we need to do is help them get back regulated, back to out of the fight, flight, or freeze with their wise old owl on tight, or their brain all working together. Okay. And curiosity questions does not help that. It usually makes it worse. So we want to make sure that everybody is regulated before we start asking curiosity questions. Second, don't try to get the right answer because kids can see right through that game, right? And then they don't want to answer. So we need to be sincere and authentic and really get curious about what your kids know. What do they know? So, just ask, get into that mind frame of like, I really want to know what you know. So I'm asking questions to find out. Okay. And then kids will be more likely to answer. Sometimes when kids been told what to do for a long time, for most of their lives, what we get when we start asking curiosity questions is, I don't know. I don't know. Because they feel like it's a trap. Um, right? Because they've been told what to do so often, and they don't know that they could possibly be capable enough to answer with the right answer. So they feel like it might be a trap, and they distrust us a bit as adults to just ask a question and be okay with whatever their answer is. And that sounds sad, but it's true. It's very true, that there's this level of trust, right? Um, so if you can see my hands here, this is the end of my my presentation. So I'm just going to show you with my hands here. When we connect on equal levels, respectful levels with kids, we're able to get more cooperation, and they're more willing to be truthful and honest with us. However, what's happened is often we parent from here, a place of power over. And so when we're in that place of power over, kids distrust us when we come here for the first time. It takes a while to get this relationship of respect and connection on an equal level, right? Where we don't feel like we have to be here as a parent, so the power over. we can be here and still maintain some control, right? I think that often as parents, we want to be respectful, and show our children that they are worthy of dignity and respect. However, when we move into the power over, it's coming from a place of fear where we feel like we're losing control of a situation, or that that our children are not equals to us, right? And now, what I like to say is that children may not be equal in wisdom and experience, but they are worthy of as much as equal dignity and respect as we are as adults. So that's how I level the playing field for them. Okay. So think about it like that. We're coming at them from this level of equality in terms of dignity and respect, right? And now, if you were an adult, and another adult came to you and spoke to you in the manner that we speak to our children sometimes, on this power over, right? Telling you what to do, not asking you how you feel about it, or trying to draw forth what you know, but just ordering you around, you would probably feel resistance to cooperate with them as well. And then if they came to you the next day and asked you, you'd be like, I don't trust you, right? I'm not sure I trust you. You've never treated me like with this respectful questions, and I'm not sure how to respond. Is it a trap? Right? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And please, I'm no judgment, right? This isn't about perfect parenting by any means, and it's not about me judging other people, because Lord knows I've been here too, right? We all move into this place of power over when we feel like we're in fear, like we feel like we're out of control, we feel like we need to take control of the situation. We move into this, and that is normal and totally okay. It's when we're trying to, we want to be here more often, because this is where we breed those really respectful relationships. This is where we build strength in relationships, and we have lots of connection, and we breed cooperation. Okay, it's where we teach our kids what respectful relationships feel like. So my hope is that as we learn together what respectful relationships feel like and sound like, our children will know more about what to look for in relationships that they want in their lives. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna turn off the recording. So for those who are watching the recording, thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you will join us next week for another topic of parenting through stress. I can't remember what the topic is. I should have looked at that. All right.